Week 10 is upon us, and we've got a lot to cover. 4 main teams on bye, and we've got one of the best rankers in the business, Rudy Gamble from Razzball, joining me here on the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Jeff Erickson here with Rudy Gamble from Razzball.com. Follow Rudy on Twitter at Rudy Gamble. And, of course, check out all that Razzball has to offer. There, obviously, football projections are live. Hoops is going live. And baseball is right around the corner. And I know, Rudy, you do a ton of baseball. We saw each other at First Pitch Arizona. So you're a multi-sport analyst as well. It's always tough to kind of balance all those things, but right now, we're in the thick of it. Pretty exciting week right now with 3 really good offenses on bye. It's hard to kind of sift through it and find some values this week.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I got the varsity jacket with the 3 sports. The Dave Winfield varsity jacket. I don't know who else. I don't know. Is there anyone else synonymous for doing all 3?
I would say Pianow. Scott Pianowski does like 4. He does hoop, and he does hockey too. I'm in a hockey league with Scott. I'm in a hoops league. I do one hoops league, but I don't cover basketball. We have too many good people to do that for us. I used to cover hockey at the same time. Used to cover like the Indiana Pacers for basketball, but bandwidth issues took over, and I had to kind of defer to others.
Well, you talk. I mean, I'm like a mole person. I just do like the projections and the rankings. I don't write. I don't talk. So this is like a treat or like an exception to the rule.
Yeah, but you used to do a lot of like media in the past, right? You just kind of scaled that back a little, or?
Well, I never had a set show. Or anything like that. I'll write when I have to, like on very specific occasions, but for the most part, it's that the projections themselves are kind of my grind, and anything on top of that is kind of puts you over the top. So you got to learn how to be parsimonious, and so.
Gotcha. Yeah. Oh, that's fair. Well, you do a great job with projections. Everybody knows that. You always do well in the Fantasy Pros contest and things of that nature. So really happy you could join us today and share some of your wisdom. Let's jump right into it at quarterback. No Mahomes this week. No Hurts. No Tua. So we're already taking 3 out of the top 10 out. It's kind of a tough week to kind of look at some of these QBs. One that we're definitely starting if you have them, because, I mean, let's face it, you drafted Lamar Jackson, you're going to start him every single week. But this is not an easy week for Lamar. Even with the Ravens rolling, how high are you on Lamar against Cleveland?
I mean, I still have him like 5th. I mean, one good thing is that this should be a relatively close game.
Yep.
I'm not bullish on Cleveland's offense in this game. But so I think it's going to be the full Lamar Jackson where he, there's other weeks I feel like recently he could have coasted. And in division, I feel like he'll get his usage. So I have him about where you'd expect. I have him like right now 5th.
Yep.
And I mean, so yeah, usually for QBs, that first 6 or 7, it's pretty much like hard to crack if you're not one of like the top 8 or 9 quarterbacks. You're always going to have Mahomes there, Allen. Right now, I mean, I have Prescott top 5 this week.
I have Prescott 5th as well.
Yeah,
I have Lamar 4 for what it's worth.
I have him 2nd right now. I have Burrow 3rd, and I have Sam Howell 4th.
Okay.
It's like, and this is, usually we're used to the good fantasy, not so good in real life, or question mark real life ones tend to be the runners.
Yeah.
I'll be like, and I kind of look through other projections sometimes. Washington is extreme heavy pass, and it's been like every week, and I don't see the adjustments the same way. So it's like Howell's, and like interceptions don't matter that much. He's got pretty good job security. He's got very good targets quality in terms of McLaurin, Dotson. Samuel should be back, but Crowder seemed to be fine in a pinch.
Yeah. Yeah, with under Eric Bieniemy, they are so pass heavy, though. You're absolutely right about that, which contributes a lot to him being sacked a lot, too, although they've kind of cut back on that the last 2 weeks, I've noticed. 4 sacks combined the last 2 weeks.
I feel like, you almost have to – the QB, his first, 15 to 20 starts, and after that is – if you don't figure it out after 15 to 20 starts, aside from a Josh Allen here or there, you're
Mhm.
not going to figure it out. So Howell's still within there. So I feel like there could be like leaps. Like I'm not convinced he's going to be a super sack happy his whole life, where it's harder to feel that way with like a Justin Fields.
For sure. For sure. I know Fields isn't going to play this week. Probably the Bears today just said he's doubtful.
Yeah.
I'm not giving up on Fields yet, and I don't think the Bears should either. I think they should definitely find out. As soon as he can play, they should be playing him. Tyson Bagent, whatever. I just think he's a turnover machine. Fun little story, but I don't think he's anything special. But I mean, I think if they really owe themselves to, give him a full chance this way before making a big decision in the draft, big decision this offseason. And I don't think the story is fully litigated either. I know he was terrible earlier this year, but I still see an upside there. And maybe it's my fantasy glasses that are coloring my opinion on him, but
it's tough. I mean, I think I kind of see it that in real life, if you don't think the guy's got an above 50% chance of being a top 10 quarterback, then and you can get a top 1 or 2 one, you do it. I don't think he could be a top 10 quarterback in real life. In fantasy, yeah. I mean, he's obviously a first top 10 pick this year in a super flex, or in specific. So I'd be game to trade him to basically take a Caleb Williams or a Drake May over him.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a tough call because right now we've seen teams be really merciless if a guy's clearly not top 20. Like the Jets were pretty quick with Darnold. I mean, they were 3 years. That was with a number 2 pick. That was good. Josh Rosen was obviously 1 year.
That was the example I was going to go for as the ultimate example of that. And they got a 2nd round pick for him.
Yeah, and it's the sunk cost fallacy. So I think, and that obviously was to also appease Cliff Kingsbury coming in and wanting a QB that was more to his liking. But I think the challenge is like, I don't know. It's like if they deal Fields, I think they can get a first rounder. If he should, there's just enough desperate teams that I could see someone doing it. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, yeah, so it's hard to say who, but there'll be someone desperate enough that has a good defense. Think if Rodgers somehow didn't come back. I mean, I know he's got stem cells in his Achilles tendon and whatever he's doing. But let's just say it doesn't work out, and the Jets are looking at a great defense, nothing on QB, and no shot at the early picks.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably need the right OC who'd pull the trigger on Fields. Who knows? Maybe Atlanta would take a shot.
Right.
I mean, he
do we wish that upon him? Yeah.
I don't. Oh, I know. It's so over discussed. But But looking at
we'll get there. We'll get there today.
Yeah, I know. So looking at the guys that jump out to me as guys that would be available in leagues, I'd say Sam Howell. I have 4. Right now I have Dobbs 10. I mean, they gave the BYU QB a half a game, and then he got hurt. And then Dobbs. So I don't see how Dobbs isn't locked in for the next couple of weeks. So I have him as number 10 QB. I mean, after that, it gets dicier. For some reason, my model likes Mac Jones right now to be at QB 11. And that one is a little tougher to stomach looking at it at the page.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I would be, sorry.
I mean, the Colts have been a kind of a sneaky ticket to the carnival team this year. They've given up a lot. I mean, remember there was the Cleveland game. There was, it was just nutso. They've had a couple games like this. Saints are known as a stodgy, boring offensive team, and then they go into Indy and go nuts. So I can see it.
Right. I mean, yeah. So I think a lot of when you look at the QBs, and I run the model. It starts with like the team matchup and what you're going to do in the line and whether you're going to, how your rush pass mix gets adjusted accordingly. So, yeah, I think the beat up on Indy is kind of lifting Mac Jones, and I think that team is passing a decent amount. Really hasn't been dedicated to the run. I mean, it's hard to say exactly. Let's just say it isn't a team that you want to watch right now. So it's a little bit of a mystery to me. Like, I don't want to watch any of the Patriots.
Oh no.
And
but there's like 8 teams I feel like that every week. When I do my rewatch, I push that one to the end. I don't want to watch that one. I guess I got to do that because there's 8 other teams that I hate too. But the Patriots are definitely low on the rewatch list every week for sure. San Francisco, Jacksonville is, I think, one of the more interesting matchups of the week. Both teams coming off a bye. Both quarterbacks, like Trevor Lawrence, playing well in real life, but not putting up huge fantasy numbers. Brock Purdy, 3 straight, the bloom is coming off the rose. 3 straight weeks with interceptions, bad games. What are you doing with these 2 quarterbacks?
I mean, right now I'm liking Purdy. I have him as QB6.
Okay.
But I have Lawrence at QB16. I don't have a strong opinion on Jacksonville's defense, like, my model might. But clearly San Francisco's defense, while, everything's been a little down on San Francisco, I like them more. I was just curious, like, is that game in San Francisco?
No, it's in Jacksonville.
Okay, that seemingly be a little bit more toward it. But, I mean, right now it's a game where I'm wary of the Jacksonville passing attack. And
I can see that.
So I don't, Lawrence isn't looking good right now. I mean, Etienne, fine, right? He's got a pretty solid floor given his usage, or not, a pretty, and his ceiling is very good. So he's a sure thing, but I'm not loving, any part of the passing game. So I find Kirk and Ridley are middling plays at wide receiver. Like, I'd consider them WR3s. Even though that game could go friendly. I mean, Jacksonville's, when they're given the option, they're running a good amount this year.
Yeah, they are.
Maybe the game script helps them, but it's hard for me to also see them getting a lot of garbage points against San Francisco.
Well, and San Francisco's interesting. I mean, there are so many moving parts in this game. Does Debo play? What version of Purdy do we have? How much does Chase Young do on defense for them there? Because lately their defense has looked vulnerable. I mean, the Bengals moved the ball readily against them 2 weeks ago, but they're coming off the bye now. Have they fixed that there? There's a lot of open questions. Meanwhile, Jacksonville's defense is playing as good as I've ever seen a Jacksonville defense play. But then again, they did it against the Steelers, who they're also low on the rewatch list. It
is hard. Yeah, I've seen some because they've gotten their primetime games, and it's not good.
No, it's not. We're gonna move on to running backs, but first, we're on the Blue Wire Network. We are happy to be on the Blue Wire Network. Here are their ads. All right. Thank you for your patience on that. And thank you to Blue Wire Network for hosting us there. Bijan Robinson. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's talk about this one.
You're killing me.
I know, but we got to rank them somewhere, right? We have to figure out what we're going to do with them. Great matchup against Arizona, but he doesn't get goal line carries. He has 1 carry inside the 5-yard line this year, and he just disappears at times. He got punished for losing a fumble last week. What are you doing with Bijan this week?
I mean, he's definitely hasn't, or his usage has not helped my fishbowl team.
No.
I mean, I'll bet right now for half PPR, I've got him at RB22. The usage just hasn't been there. I mean, he's never gotten he's never gotten a lot of carries in any of these games, or maybe it's been weeks. So, I mean, he's obviously, I can't imagine benching him. But he just keeps moving further and further down. Like, I mean, I felt like there's a gravitational pull and there's like certain tiers. So like it'd be really hard to put like a McCaffrey or Eckler out of the top 2 or let's say 5. You're like, ooh, that looks low. And I feel like Bijan started as like, wow, you're keeping him out of the top 5, and then it was, wow, you're keeping him out of the top 10. Now it's more like 15 or 20. Yeah, so I still look at him like, wow, his consensus is 11 right now. I have him at 22. I'll probably go in, look at the snap count, see how he's being used.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, maybe that's a game where everything goes right for them, but I don't know. It's playing the fade has been working well for him.
Yeah. The problem is like, and the thing is like, it helps us from a ranking standpoint. Maybe it helps others in DFS. The problem is if you drafted Bijan, you drafted him in a way that you're going to have to play him anyhow, regardless, unless he's like absolutely buried. And he's like 35 on our rankings. Then you could consider it there. But I mean, you're unlikely to have 2 or 3, depending what you use at flex, better running backs. I mean, you drafted under the reliance that he would be your guy that you'd start every single week.
Right. And I'm looking, last 2 weeks he's been at like 11 carries a week.
Yeah.
I don't see why you change that. The move to Heineke gives you a little bit more pass flexibility. Like, you don't have to be quite as conservative. I'm not saying he's not like a Fitzpatrick mode guy that he could make an exciting 6-10 team. Or I don't know if Washington would say their team was exciting last year. And then you look at the targets, and he's had like 4 and 5 the last 2 weeks. There's no reason to think they're going to funnel running back targets on this team.
No.
So his usage is just not good. I feel like the usage for this type of team would be like, let him get almost all the running back targets, like maybe like how we saw Cordarrelle get used last year, and at least 60% of the red zone touches. So I don't know. It's hard to. I don't want to get into Arthur Smith psychology. So we know what the upside is here.
Yeah.
So if he gets a 2 touchdown game, these things happen. I think he trusts volume more than anything else. And I think we're looking at another maybe like 15, 16 touch game without ones inside the 5. So that doesn't, and he also hasn't done anything like, let's say a Breece Hall has been a scary guy to fade, because it seems like every game he gets one of those 40, 50-yard plays.
Right.
Bijan can do that. It just hasn't happened.
Right. And it's almost, and it's really funny how, you track like Bijan's progress through the course of the season versus Jahmyr Gibbs, and Gibbs is starting to do now what we thought Bijan would be doing all along.
Yeah. So much the environment. So I'm a huge Bijan fan. I'm not even going to try to be objective about it.
Yeah, that's right. You're in Austin.
Yeah. So he's pretty much loved here. So I think he's a better than a Gibbs, better than I'm trying to think, who's the other guy you had mentioned as, or I'd say like Breece Hall. Like, I would rather have Bijan if I was starting a team, but contextually that I don't like that team at all. Nope. Where I feel like Detroit's being really well run. I do think Gibbs is going to take a step back, assuming if Montgomery comes back this week. That's right. That's one of the various injury question marks. That's going to have a massive swing on his value. I think Montgomery won't go back to the way he was used. I think
agreed.
But I still don't see why you can't make a case with a straight face or without showing your fantasy colors. If you were like, yeah, I'd make that a 50-50 share. I think that works. No need to run Gibbs into the ground. I think he's under 200.
Yeah. So that was my next question actually is, okay, so what are you doing with these Detroit backs? Assuming Montgomery plays, how do you have them like ranked? How do you project the split?
Yeah. I'd go more 50-50, especially with Montgomery coming off the injury. I think it's always good to, the type of usage he was getting, where it was 60-70% snaps or lion's share of rushes. You dial that back.
Yeah.
So we'll see what if it's 50-50 in week 10, then week 11, and he's showing health, I might dial it up a bit. But right now I have Montgomery RB24 and consensus is 15. And I have Gibbs at 16, consensus is 19. So one I'll keep an eye on. But right now, I'd say if anything, the market's a little too bullish on Montgomery, which is odd. I would have really thought the Gibbs helium would have been higher.
Right.
But yeah.
I'm probably waiting another week before I move Montgomery too high. I've got Gibbs at 11 and Montgomery 25, but
Okay.
I kind of want to see what the practice reports are before I really go into like go into like flipping that order a little bit there.
Right.
But, by the way, for folks that are streaming along with us right now, if you've got a question that's related to what we're talking about, we'll hit it up right away. Otherwise, we'll hit your questions at the end of the podcast. And thank you for posting those. But we will hit a lot of those up. Keaton Mitchell is the top pickup this week, but we alluded to this matchup against Cleveland is not a good fantasy matchup. And it's a three-headed monster in Baltimore. And we know Gus Edwards is going to get goal line carries. We know Lamar is going to take some away too. I mean, What are you doing with these Baltimore running backs this week?
I mean, it is going to be a share for sure. I mean, like the crazy thing with Keaton he had the big play. And it was great. I mean, he didn't have a lot of snap. I mean, he had like 20% of the rushes, but it was on a very few snaps. I mean, I had him only at like 18% snap share.
Okay.
That's just not startable at all. So the question would be, who's he taking the usage from? We know what Gus's role is. And Gus took a big back seat, but I think that was more rest. They didn't need
game flow. Yep. 100%.
So I feel like, and then, where you're like, oh, well, Keaton Mitchell could be like the 1B, but then you got Justice Hill and he's been playing a lot. So I'm seeing Keaton Mitchell as like a Dearness Johnson role where it's like the second he could be a 1 or 1A, you might want him, particularly because of the team and their aptitude to run. But until then, I don't get it. I mean, I feel like it's a stash. I don't think I'd much rather start Montgomery than Mitchell.
I've got Mitchell like 32 this week.
I have him like 52 right now.
Yeah. Well, my thought is there might be a genie out of the bottle sort of thing here. They see like that speed that he brings that the other two backs don't have. And like, okay, and I've made the facile comparison to Devon Achane before. I know it's not that,
right? But
it could be Achane light in terms of like, Eureka, we've got this guy. We got to find a way to use him.
Yeah, I mean that this is one where right now I'm gearing. I mean, like it looks like in general I am negative on most. I'm down on Edwards as well compared to consensus. Justice Hill about equal. I think that's going to be the question mark.
Yeah,
like Justice Hill's not he's been getting 50+% snap share. And I don't think he necessarily warrants it. It's certainly not a no-brainer. So I think all his usage would come at the expense of Justice Hill. And I think that's kind of a game from a projection standpoint. You hedge. And I think you're right. You probably hedge a little bit that Mitchell's role expands with the genie out of the bottle. Not crazy, like 25-30%. Rushing's always a little tough to do rush share for them because Lamar takes his share and Gus Edwards is so rush heavy.
Yeah.
But I would say I could see him settling in about RB40.
Okay. I could see it. Yeah. And it's just such a wide range of outcomes anyhow too. It's just, I might be in a situation where if I get Mitchell, I'm going to have to start him. In the NFFC, he's actually available, which is, first of all, it's the NFFC. Anytime you find somebody that's available, you go after him that's got a pulse. It's him or Tajay Spears. I might just take the swing for the fences with Mitchell in that instance there. I mean, it's a bye week thing for me there, where I've got and Khalil Herbert coming off IR. I don't know what to do with him. It's kind of a messy situation there.
Yeah, and it's hard to know now that we saw Spears get some pretty good usage under when Tannehill was there with Levis there. I think everything's on the table.
That's right. That's right.
And I don't think they're as play action heavy. Feels just like a different offense. And they're just like, let's see what we have in Levis.
Yeah.
And Henry's been doing pretty well. So I would rather take a shot at Mitchell. And then maybe, we've seen Justice Hill and Edwards get hurt. I think the tough thing is that it's just like it all generally starts with you want targets and you want touchdowns, and we've never been able to count on any of those as for running backs out of Baltimore.
That's true. That's absolutely right.
Even Dobbins, every year and he's had rough injury luck, and but yeah, so Baltimore's always a touchy situation with Lamar there.
For sure. Absolutely. We're going to talk wide receivers next, but first, quick note from our friends at Circa Sportsbook and Casino. Get ready for the ultimate big game parties at Circa Resort. Super Sunday is in Las Vegas this year. Watch the big game poolside at Stadium Swim's big game viewing party. Massive screen, booming game sound, and a view of the pyrotechnic and visual effects throughout the game. Snag the best seat in the sun with day beds, poolside boxes, cabanas, and more, or touchdown at the world's largest sportsbook. Circa Sports for the big game bash. 3 stories of football glory featuring a 78 million pixel screen. Book your seat with a variety of reservation options, including bottle service, open bar, stadium-style food, and more. Don't miss these legendary viewing experiences on February 11th. The big game parties, only at Circa Resort and Casino. Reserve today at circalasvegas.com. I'm here with Rudy Gamble from Razzball.com. You can check out Rudy's rankings over at Razzball every single week, and he does very well at his rankings and projections, not only for football, but for baseball as well, and hoops. Tri-sport projector there. And we got a lot to discuss here at wide receiver. Chris Godwin, all this excitement going around last week. And then you're like, and I'm driving back from First Pitch, Arizona. And I didn't get to catch every play. So I'm like, okay, I got something pretty decent here from him. No, 2 for 16.
It was yesterday was this weekend was one of my one of the tougher wide receiver weeks to project out. He was one of them. I was high on him. And the game script, the passes were there, I think.
Yeah.
It was a weird, one of those games where the tight end gets the mediocre tight end gets touchdowns, kind of like, so yeah, that was tough. I still see Godwin and Evans as certainly startable. It helps they don't really have a third wide receiver there that commands much. Mayfield can only see so much over the linemen. Otten is kind of more of a red zone play. White's definitely gotten his targets as well. So it feels like it's been a pretty limited tree. But yeah, you would think Godwin wouldn't have had such a low floor.
Yeah, I know.
So this week seems fine. It's where I definitely think there's going to be a couple games where that are just set up well. Like I've got 2 games, I think, where it seems like both teams are set well to pass. I feel like that Washington-Seattle game is going to be a big one. So I like all the targets there. And I think it was Cincinnati and
Houston, yeah. CJ Stroud with his encore performance.
Well, it's also, I think the thing that I didn't do well in that one, I'll blame it on First Pitch Arizona and having to think about baseball, but I think it was largely with Dameon Pierce out. The reality was they weren't going to run. Like Singletary's never been really a 15 carry guy. Mm-hmm. Even though he misses tackles, I believe I've seen like 400 times. him and David Montgomery seem to have that one trait. And they don't really have it I forgot who their backups were, or they're like RB3 and 4, but it was like Dare and
who turned out to be a kicker too. Who knew?
Now the thing is, I don't know about Dameon Pierce this week. But
yeah, I don't either yet. I haven't heard a whole lot. Mike Boone, by the way, is the other one that they have.
And Mike Boone is a Dearness Johnson all-star too.
Yep.
Every year the preseason, be like, oh, Minnesota, if this guy ever gets a chance. He's moved to other teams. He never gets a chance. And I'm gonna go with the assumption that every NFL team isn't stupid.
Yeah, I still think Duke Johnson deserves another chance, but it's probably a little too late on that one there. But
yeah. I mean, there's so many that like the annals of fantasy RB hype. So I feel like there's a couple games where you really want to potentially target. And evidently, I really like the going up against Indy and New England with we're finally seeing at least one wide receiver there, seemingly getting the volume in terms of Demario Douglas.
Right. It's a shame Bourne's out. He was becoming that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he really was like he's kind of like a poor man's Deebo Samuel. I mean, he was on San Francisco, I know, but he kind of was predated Deebo, I want to say. They might have had a 1 year overlap, but
right.
But he's always been good for Yak. So he finally got going in New England. It seemed like there were definitely some off-field issues or something. A year.
That was weird. That was really weird because every time he'd make a player like, why is he getting 7 snaps? Get him, use him there. But
so that the only thing we know that because I feel like I haven't watched Demario Douglas, but like I said, the usage is there.
Yep.
And we know, and there's no reason to believe that anyone else is going to emerge. Like Juju, it's not going to happen. They've got a few other guys like Bote who can't get on the field. So I feel like that New England game might be sneaky. But again,
it's a Germany game again too. So
I hate those.
Yeah, me too. West Coast, I hate it especially. Trust me on that.
I got to see that I had to wake up. I had set my alarm for 6 o'clock or so to make sure there's anything before this weekend's European games.
Yeah,
or European game, and especially because it wasn't even like a nothing burger of a game with like if all of a sudden it's like KC and like
in Miami,
Travis Kelce decided not to show up.
I know
that could have major implications, but it was nothing surprising happened in the morning, which was I went just back to sleep. But that was like umpteenth example of, man, it's hard to bet on those. Like it's hard, take the under every European game.
Seems like it, right? Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, they're used to soccer games, so maybe they're used to low scoring and stuff. But it's so that does put a damper on that thought. But
yeah, for sure. Pittsburgh, Carl Pickens has had
George
Pickens. God, Bengals fan here.
Right division.
George Pickens has had 2 bad fantasy games in a row. Should have had a touchdown, couldn't get the second foot down. He was unhappy after the game on the Thursday night game, even though the Steelers won. And like the whole team was celebrating Diontae Johnson scoring a touchdown. And there's George Pickens over there, kind of by himself, like feeling, because he wanted to be the man. Is there a squeaky wheel thing that happens this week? Do you still have him over Diontae Johnson, or how are you dealing with that situation?
No, I mean, I've been high on Pickens last couple weeks. It hit early.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think now Diontae Johnson's definitely feels like, Pickens was never a high target guy. He was a high impact guy. And you're going to have lower floors with that, as we saw the last week. Diontae Johnson's kind of a high target guy that does seem to be escaping from his insanely low ADOT. that he had early on, which, I mean, we knew, I mean, with Noodle on Ben, I mean, there was definitely like hard to blame on it. So, I mean, I have Diontae at like 15 for half PPR going into the week, Pickens at 24. I mean, I think that the thing about it is like, who else are they throwing it to? With Freiermuth?
Yep.
Freiermuth, there you go. He's with him out. The tight ends aren't getting nearly the same looks.
That's right.
I mean, a little disappointing. I would have liked to seen something out of that Darnell Washington, but it doesn't seem to be happening. First year tight end is tough unless, you know, even though there's some good examples this year. I mean, Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin, not competition.
Nope.
I mean,
very narrow tree.
Najee really doesn't get targets. So you got Warren coming out of the backfield.
Warren looks good, by the way, as a pass catcher. I like every time I see him in open field, I'm like, ooh, they need to do that one more often.
No, I mean, they've got both RBs are worth starting.
Yeah.
And so like, and I guess both these wide receivers are worth starting. It makes Pickens more appealing that there's only so many balls to go around. The squeaky wheel thing does work. I do have the certain feel that don't overreact to a bad week for a wide receiver.
Yeah, I agree.
And that I think even Matt Canada, and even like someone like Tomlin who's like a hard ass, like that's just the nature of wide receivers. You just, you know, we didn't target him a lot this week for matchup reasons, for any reason. The guy could have stunk. You don't want a guy getting into a funk and getting 2 or 3 of those in a row.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know what it'll be, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the first red zone throw or something.
Yeah. Well, previously, Pickett was like, anytime Pickens is on one-on-one, I'm going to go to him.
Right.
He's kind of lost a little bit of that bravado. Now, granted, Diontae Johnson was hurt that whole time during that too. So.
Right. So I do think I do think Pickens is clearly 2 in the order. Mm-hmm. But again, I still like him. I don't know where I end up on him, but I would think in the WR 25 to 30 range.
Okay. One last one that has had 3 bad games in a row. Shockingly, in my mind, at least, well, they're not really shockingly when you look at the quarterback situation. That's Cooper Kupp. The Steelers game, we did have Stafford, and he wasn't hurt in that game. The Dallas game, Stafford got hurt in the middle of that game. And then last week, obviously, ripping where it was, as Joe Dolan said, hide the quarterback. And I fully believe in that. That is true. But, I mean, the Rams have gone out and signed Carson Wentz to be the backup. I almost think that's going to be a harbinger to, okay, this gives us some cover if we do have to put Stafford on IR.
Right.
Seeing all these bad things, do you try to sell Kupp while you can? Or
yeah. No, I mean, I think the only thing that was keeping, Kupp, his value that high was the Stafford thing. And I felt like that once you took Stafford out, it was that you'd not just the quality of the passes, but you'd have less plays because they'd be less successful, less first downs, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And you're going to shift to running more, even though that's not particularly a strength of the team, out of their personnel. I just see everything going down. So I think that Stafford going down just basically kills Kupp and Nakwa's value on a week-to-week basis. So, not necessarily unstartable, which is crazy because Kupp was like a must-start top 5 wide receiver two weeks ago. I don't know if he's feeling any after effects of anything. I think it's strictly Stafford seems to be very good at funneling to a wide receiver.
Yeah.
And you just can't, I don't think Kupp is one that is as plug and play for that as maybe like DeAndre Hopkins was at his prime.
Sure.
Or, we just saw it with Devontae Adams, who seems to be universally like considered top 3, top 5 wide receiver on talent, and seems to be able to get open at will, and had super high target rates under 2 wide quarterbacks, and all of a sudden, no.
Yeah. And you started to see that creep in a little bit last year with Derek Carr, even at the helm. He had a couple of games where he had nothing burgers. Remember, there was the Steeler game last year, which, okay, blame it on the weather, but there was like the New Orleans game, which was terrible. But then they said, oh, everybody's sick. That's why we're so terrible. I don't know. It just started to see little things like, okay, well, there's always an excuse, always a reason. But Davante Adams is also at an age where wide receivers start to decline.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, but some of it is, are you getting those first looks? And I know there's like a metric out there now, but it really, there's definitely games where you saw, I remember with Rodgers, where it'd just be like, yep, you're going to get open, Davante Adams. I'm going to throw it to you. And sometimes, if you're really staring it down like that, maybe not actual staring, there's a spot where the guy is always open. It's impossible to guard you, where if you're truly spreading it around, you're never seeing that little moment. So I would just see it as, I'd be, if you could trade Kupp as if he's a low end WR1, that's just easy.
Yeah, I'd even consider it for a WR2, because I think he's going to come back as like wide receiver 30 after the bye for me here.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of go down the list. Like, I'd trade him for Diontae Johnson right now.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'd trade him for George Pickens. So that's where
that's your line. Okay, that's a pretty good line right there.
Yeah, so I think maybe like even into the WR2s, there's I would trade him for McLaurin for sure. I don't know if I would trade him for Dotson. That feels but we'll see. But yeah, it does. Yeah, I mean, I think McVay is. I feel like that Oregon's basically just saying, like, with Stafford out, like, we're done.
Yeah, and they were kind of undefined even before that there too. I mean, they just, but you know what? Flags fly forever. They have their Super Bowl title, and they knew it was going to be rough, but then they got that start this year, like, oh, they might be better than we thought. And then, no.
I know. I mean, I had Kieran Williams in one league. That was a nice little, hit very early on a 19th round running back.
No kidding. That was huge. Too bad he's hurt. Now he might come back. They said he could come back as early as week 11, maybe week 12, maybe week 12. I think I read the note.
Yeah. And I do. And that, I mean, I could totally see a case where he could provide some value.
Yeah. Now the question is, can he be durable enough though? I mean, we've already seen him get hurt once. It could happen again. That's the,
I mean, yeah, I would think there's no reason to go crazy. 80% plus rush. Snap share for a guy like that. I mean, just play Henderson. You're not going to play Zach Evans.
No, they clearly aren't. They haven't been even. Yeah, you might see some of Royce Freeman. Ugh.
Or is Rivers, maybe, I don't know if he's going to come back. Yeah, the Zach Evans thing is not surprising. I mean, he was basically a 5-star, pretty much Bijan's peer coming out of high school. He ended up going to like 2 or 3 colleges. Started, didn't have a great reputation.
Right.
So it feels like the type that it's like, when a team gives up, when a team clearly doesn't give a guy a chance like that, it's a sign. And like,
right.
I feel like one of the key things that we got to do in fantasy is like, man, it's okay to take an L. Like, you're going to be wrong on a guy.
Mm-hmm. It's not always the team is an idiot. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No need to be stubborn about it. Like, so I do thought, when I see content where it's just like, I really believe in this guy, it's like, man, like, there's not a lot of the guys that just suddenly like reappear, like Charles White going way back.
Yeah.
Remember that? It's like, oh, he's a dud. He's a Heisman. He's a dud. And then it's like, oh, well, if we put him in the Rams machine, he's like, he can run for 1,500 yards.
Exactly.
And then he disappeared again. That was an age.
Cedric Benson's my favorite one of those.
Ooh, hey, nice UT one. Yeah, no, Right. But in that case, I mean, like a guy had actually like achieved at a high. I mean, those are guys that achieved very high in college.
Right.
And Evans was a little bit more of a mixed bag.
Right.
So yeah, especially if you transfer and it's not a clear upgrade like Gibbs did, because Gibbs was Georgia Tech, goes to Alabama for a year, like that.
Kenneth Walker going from Wake Forest to Michigan State, same thing. Yep.
Yeah, no, I mean, the guys that leave under murkier,
yeah, where they weren't getting the chance, like, oh, it's just a matter they couldn't see his talent, and then he still doesn't get a chance. You're like, okay,
yeah,
on there. So we're going to hit some Q&A here, but before we do that, quick note from our next sponsor, Splash. RotoWire is proud to partner with Splash Sports for the 2023 fantasy football season. Splash Sports empowers gaming commissioners to earn by creating contests. Commissioners can set up contests, add their style, and enjoy the ever-evolving Splash Sports platform for customized preferences. From daily to season-long contests, Splash Sports caters to various playing styles, such as DFS, Pick X, and traditional Survivor. And unlike traditional sportsbooks, Splash Sports pits you against friends and family, not the house. Splash goes beyond betting, a space where friends can connect, they can strategize, and share in the excitement of sports. RotoWire will be running weekly DFS tiers contests on Splash Sports all season. Can you beat the RotoWire experts? Visit rotowire.com/splash to enter today. Here with Rudy Gamble from Razzball.com. And Rudy, you ready to hit up some of these questions? Got a bunch of them in the chat room.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Big Body Birds needs a second running back. Has no one really because he's got Bijan and Kyron and nobody else. Would you trade Kyron and Brandon Ayuk for Alvin Kamara in this instance?
Let's get rid of Ayuk. I don't know. I mean, the Kamara usage was wonderful with the targets.
Yes.
But I mean, now we're seeing Taysom's gotten like 10 carries a game the last two. Mm-hmm. Targets have gone down for Kamara. I mean, I just like my wide receivers. So
yeah, it's tough.
I'd really go bargain. Like I would just go volume on your, find 2 or 3 running backs that have like a prayer or, like that have some level of share. The Keaton Mitchell would obviously be like one type.
And he does have AJ Brown, Ayuk, Hollywood, Collins, and Olave at wide receiver. So he's deep.
Geez. That is deep. I mean,
no AJ Brown this week, obviously, because of buys.
Yeah.
I think I do this.
Yeah, with that depth, I didn't see. That is pretty high because all 5 of those I'd feel fine starting. I think I'd probably would put Collins 5th because I think he has he's a little like Pickens.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's fair to say Ayuk is not a high floor guy, given they like to run and if Debo's healthy.
Right.
And you've got Kittle there. So yeah, I'll change it. I will say like I'm not super bullish on Kamara right now.
Understood. Because you lose out on goal line because of Taysom Hill. And you lose out on some other stuff. But his usage was so good even for a while there.
But it was the target thing was like it was pretty classic David Carr.
Yeah. Operation check.
Or no,
Derek Carr.
Yeah, it's so
I do that too all the time. Don't worry about that.
You gotta go with different initials.
Yeah.
But yeah, if he doesn't get extreme targets, yeah, I don't see it they've got Kendrick Miller to take a couple of carries, probably no more. They got Jamal Williams so I see Kamara as much more of like an RB 10 to 15 rest of the year than RB top 5.
Lex plant some trees asks, should I do Diontae and Warren for T. Higgins?
No. Higgins. Chase is so good. Higgins has been fighting the injury. I feel like he's been dinged all year. I still don't know if he's healthy.
I think he is now. And I think, but it's not like Chase is going to lose too much usage. I mean, it's Higgins is
No,
clearly like, okay, you've got a great matchup. They're doing everything to stop Chase. Okay, well, you are a 1A, but I mean, you are a 1B, I should say, but
right,
Chase is definitely a 1A. There's no doubt.
right. There's certain one. There's basic. I would kind of say Higgins is a pure 2, just like I would say Devontae Smith this year is a pure 2.
Yep.
You like when the 1A is that putting up 30+% target share. Yeah, it's just so hard, except if it was a super duper kind of funneled offense.
By the way, Chase did not practice today. He's got that back issue, so something to watch for. But it's a Wednesday practice. I'll be more concerned if by Friday he's not practicing. I'll give him all the way till that.
And I mean, and in that case, if Higgins is getting all that attention, I don't like Higgins as necessary. I think Higgins looks best when he could basically, when Chase has got 2 guys, in the secondary, so it's harder to double him.
Agreed.
I think that becomes a whole nother game. That Burrow's playing a whole different game if Chase is out.
Indeed. Chargy 65 asks, not excited about my Chargers defense and special teams against Detroit. Can we talk about some streaming Ds? Obviously, last week Chargers were a great stream, but
this is awful. I have them as last.
Yeah,
and
it's a bad setup.
Now, granted, I think. Now, I mean, I'm not really looking deep into special teams, and that I will say that punt return was pretty nice against the Jets. That was like the highlight. Like I feel like Jets Chargers. Look at that run. End of game, 28-7 or whatever.
Yeah, it was a weird game. So who do we like to stream instead this week?
Okay, guys, team, and my defense stuff is always pretty out there. So there's definitely going to be guys. I like Bengals.
Yep.
I think that's maybe more for turnovers and sack. I forget. I don't have the matchups here. Cincinnati
against Houston. So that's. I mean, Stroud doesn't turn it over that much, but
maybe sacks.
Yeah, maybe
stuff like that. Bears.
I like the Bears this week a lot. I think they're a good stream. I like the Steelers, although they're probably not available. I guess
they're not going to be available. And I got, and right now I've got Vikings and Titans as 2 teams that I'd be keeping an eye on. I mean, I think Vikings just came off of were they the top one week? I think they've been pretty sneaky good on defense.
They are. For the longest time, like, oh yeah, we're going to target the Vikings, but you can't run against them as easily as you think. And yeah, they've gotten better. They held on to Danielle Hunter. So their pass rush is still pretty strong. Maybe against New Orleans, I could see that a little bit. The Chicago's the one I like the most among those. And the other side of that matchup, I don't mind either. Now that we know it's going to be Tyson Bagent again, I don't mind Carolina either. Yeah,
I mean, I think that definitely changed Actually, it took it down for me because basically Fields is such a sack and interception.
Yeah,
I mean, particularly the sacks, where it seems odd, but the thing is with the Bagent, the rookie, we just don't know enough. So it's almost like the regression's given him a bit of a leeway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think there's a lot to be done. I would definitely move off the Chargers this week.
This was an easy question, I think. Should I trade Madison for Devontae Adams?
Yeah.
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 Like, what's the catch? Yeah, absolutely.
It is sad. I mean, I don't know why. Well, we know why. I mean, the Raiders are pretty screwed up, but that I wonder if anyone gave him it felt like a similar thing to how when McCaffrey left Carolina.
Yeah.
Although that one didn't feel as like bad blood as much as like San Francisco's like, I'll fit it in. I'll give you like a second rounder.
Mm-hmm.
And that there isn't a team that could just, I mean, any team could use Devontae.
Yeah, absolutely. And Madison was losing time to Cam Akers, and I know he's out, but still, Madison's not very good. He just
no. And now there's, and I feel like it doesn't. It'll be interesting to see what kind of run Ty Chandler gets. I did I did think he would get a decent run this year.
Yeah.
And they clearly, he hasn't played much at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm pretty low on Madison. The fact that Cousins is out doesn't help.
Agreed. And Dobbs being a mobile quarterback also.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So yeah. But who's going to take that? That would be.
Yeah. If that's an offer you have, and that's not 33, take that offer. Not absolutely. If you're proposing it, good luck. They're going to probably say they're going to snap reject you, but that's okay.
Ooh.
Jackson Neely says, should I trade Olave and Amari for Breece Hall?
He's got a ton of. He's got JT and Bijan. Jettis.
Yeah, I couldn't figure that one out either. So just.
But let's assume he put him ahead of it. Is that Justin Jefferson? I don't know. I mean, you're putting him ahead of Amon Ross, so there's not really many that would make sense there.
Right.
You've got just enough depth. But you got JT and Bijan. I don't know. I mean, this is a shallow league.
And I get it because you've been a little frustrated with Olave. That's probably the origin of this question a little bit there. And you're getting an elite running back, but as we saw on Monday night, Breece Hall can be frustrating too. And it's not his fault. It's just the Jets are the Jets.
Right. You've got bad, generally unreliable offenses across the board there.
Yep.
I think if you're gearing up for the playoffs, and I mean, his top 3 wide receivers were pretty solid. So I'm not super opposed, but it does feel like one of those 2 nickels for a dime kind of trades where it's like, not bad.
Yeah. Let's go one more here. Lindorphins asks, if both are active, do you prefer Pierce or Singletary this week at Cincinnati? Half-point PPR.
I don't really like either. Singletary putting up nothing in that game was really disappointing.
Yeah, it was. I will say the running matchup against Cincinnati is better than the one against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is pretty decent at stopping the run. Bengals, I don't think are. Although they did against Buffalo on Sunday night. That might just be a Buffalo thing too.
Yeah. So I'm looking to see if where I have Pierce right now.
I didn't rank
have him out.
Because I always, like, a guy misses a game. I can't rank him unless it's like they say, oh, he is definitely coming back, or they do something like that.
I rank him, but so the fact that I'm not seeing him in this makes me think maybe he got marked out. But if not, I'd probably lean Singletary and hope that. But I don't like
catches some passes or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. We'll leave on that one there. If we didn't get your question answered, you can always hit us up on Twitter. You can always check out RotoWire's Ask an Expert service, Razzball services. We'll have plenty of sources there to help you with their sit-start questions. And, of course, we got multiple podcasts later this week, too. So you can chime in.
We have a trade analyzer, that can handle some of these trade options, too.
Good.
I got to make sure to refresh with some of this Week 10 stuff.
Yep, absolutely. So make sure to check that out. Give Rudy a follow. Give Razzball a follow. They're good people there. We appreciate them. We always do a lot of stuff with them over the course of the season. So, Rudy, thank you so much for joining me today. Great to see you in Arizona.
Yeah, good. We'll probably next time we'll be talking baseball.
I know. It'll be awesome. All right, thanks everybody. Take care. Thanks for listening to RotoWire.